So I'm going to introduce you, Gaetan, and then
Okay.
I'm going to talk about the protocol, and then you can start. So Gaetan, of course, he does not need an introduction, but we're still going to do it. um, so here we go. Gaetan Charland, he's from Quebec. He's a long time Quebec, Canada. He's a long-time reader of the Urantia book and host of a study group for the last 21 years. Members of the study group committee of UAI and of his local association, trustee associate of Urantia Foundation, and involved in different education initiatives. Topic of his presentation is the importance of the message of Jesus and how we can pursue its mission as students and teachers of the Urantia book. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the protocol, and then I'm going to give you a few instructions on top of that, and then we can start. So I want everyone to read the protocol. For the people who already joined us many hours, they know the protocol. But if you want to speak, raise your hand. If you don't want to be recorded, please turn off your video. And if you're not speaking, just mute yourself. And we are live streaming this video on Facebook for future generations. So be aware of that. And Gaetan,
Yes.
you can start.
Okay, I was just reading the protocol. See. Okay, so I'm happy to be here, first of all. I'm impressed by the number of people in this initiative that lasts for 24 hours. And maybe it'll be repeated because of the condition that we see in the world now. And I think this time of turmoil that we're going through is an opportunity for all of us, reader of the Urantia book, to make a contribution a way to serve our brother and sister, our neighbor, our family member, maybe just a phone call to ask them how they're doing, especially those that are confined. I'm one of those people that are self-confined because I'm at risk. Anyone over 70 years old, I'm diabetics, I have a heart condition, so I have to be extra careful. I'm not catching that virus. So I stay home voluntarily, but from home, I can be useful. So I belong to other organization, organize meeting online to help people that suffer from anxiety. And we do see a lot of people at this time that suffer from anxiety. So we can help in any way we can. And this is a good way to extend the brotherhood of men. So be proactive in those times of conflict, those times of crisis, and it's a good way to shine our light. Now, my topic for my presentation, I did a PowerPoint presentation, a few slides, teachers and the message of Jesus, and how we go about doing this. And first of all, I want to introduce why I chose that topic. Many years ago, when I found the Urantia book, I was most interested in the first part of the book. I was not much interested in the part about the Jesus, because I had read the Bible and the religion which I belong to in Quebec, which is Catholic religion, had made a lot of bad impression on us, on our mind about Jesus, and there was a lot of contentious issue about Jesus in my province. So when I came to the Urantia book, I was more interested in the story of the world. Why was the world in such a state? So I started reading the book, took me about a year and a half, and then I put it aside for about 2 years, trying to digest what I had read. And then it took me a few years before I started belonging to a study group. In fact, it took me from 79 to 87. So it took me 8 years before I finally got to my first study group. And when I did this, it was a decision on my part to try to live the teaching that I knew of from the Urantia book. So I had first to accept what the Urantia book was teaching, and then accept those teaching in my own life. So I understood at this time that if I want the world to change, I need to be the change that I want to see in the world. And I think that's very important as a Urantia book reader. We need to impersonate that change that we want to see in the world. Or else, we will sound like hypocrite talking about, the message of Jesus or talking about the Urantia. The next challenge I had was, what do I share? And like many of us at the beginning, I would share the book. And so I gave the book to, I don't know, maybe over 100 people. And I talked, to all my friends about the book, like many of us do, my family members, my co-workers, everybody I met, I talk about the Urantia book. There was even a time in Montreal where there was a congress, a big meeting of astronomers at the University of Montreal. And I called the foundation. And I called the foundation to see if I could share with those astronomers part of the Urantia book, just I wanted to make copies of it. And they say, no, you can't do that. And I was ready to do anything so people would know about the Urantia book. And I know that there's a lot of readers that are the same. They want to convey that love of the book to others. They want to share the book with others. But I learned my lesson throughout the years. And in the Urantia book, they say, if you keep doing the same thing and expect different results, it's kind of a, it's kind of a crazy things to do, because, if you always do the same thing, most of the time you're always going to get the same results. So I stopped sharing the book as I used to. And I start researching what I could do to improve myself in trying to share the teaching of the Urantia book. So instead of sharing the teaching, instead of sharing the book itself as a first, I start to look for ways to share the teaching. But to share the teaching involves something else. It involved changing ourselves, changing our perspective, and learning. And there are a few things that really impress me. Not only a few things, a few people within the Urantia book community really impress me. And I'm going to tell you a short story. One of those things was about music. Many years ago, I can't remember how many years was that, in the 90s, I wanted to learn piano because it was one of the things I wanted to do all my life, since I was a kid. So I bought myself a big piano, paid a lot of money, started taking courses. And after a year, I was not getting anywhere. So I sold the piano and I said, well, that's it for me. I'm not a piano player. A few years later, how about another piano? A smaller one this time. Try it again. After a few months, couldn't make it. So I sold that piano again. Mind you, a few years later, I bought another one. It's like it was telling me, you need, I wanted so much to learn it. So because then there was course available with the tablet and the computer. So I started practicing and all this, and, didn't work out. I was too busy doing other things. So I sold it again. And one day I'm at the foundation, and there's someone here, Christina Seaborn, who was there. And Christina is there, and she played piano. She was there with a friend, and I started talking to her and letting her know that in the past, I tried to play piano. And she asked me, she says, how long did you practice? I said, about a year. And she says, how long would it take for you to learn a new language? And I started thinking, I said, well, it took me about 2 years to learn English so I could talk. And she said, well, how long do you think it would take to learn the language of music? You think just a year would be sufficient? And probably if you would have kept going, be more persistent, you would have learned how to play piano. And you know what? Just that simple advice that she gave me stayed with me for years. And you know what? A few months ago, I bought another piano. And I'm get moving along well. I'm practicing every day and it helps me relax. Why I'm saying this story? Because as reader of the Urantia book, we want to be teachers. It's a little bit of the same. When we come to the Urantia book, we might ask ourselves, why was I given this book? Why did I find this book? Of course, we also, because I was looking for it, I was searching for it, like I was depressed. I heard all kind of story. If you read the book, How I Found the Urantia book, you find out there's many ways that people found the Urantia book, and they have in their minds different question to answer. They found the answer in the Urantia book. But once you find it, my first realization was this book is really too big for me. After I understood some part of it, a little part of it, I finally realized that, this is too big for me. I cannot grasp the whole of it. So what can I do? So I prayed. And I believe prayer is one of the most essential practice as a Urantia book reader that we should involve ourselves in. And so for years, I remember praying, asking God, well, tell me, what am I supposed to do with this book? What am I supposed to do with that? And then, when you ask for something, well, the answer always follows someone, some way or others. So a few years later, I was called to take over the presidency of my local association. And of course, I didn't want to do that because, I says, who am I to tell other people what to do? I didn't know anything about, any association. So I said, I'm going to, take over for 2 years, organize things, and then I can go after that. And, that's over 20 years ago. And I'm still involved in any kind of manner possible. So, be wary of what you ask. There's always going to be an answer. But in my quest, my quest was not over. Not only can we serve as as being involved in an organization, but I think we should have each of us our own personal mission with the Urantia book. Each one of us is called to do something with that gift that was given to us. If you read again the part where Jesus talked about the talent, some they gave 10 talent, another one 5, another one 3, another one 1. And the one that had 1 buried it, he was scared of losing it. And the one that had many, start to make profit out of it. And the one with 5, the same, the one with 3, and then he gave more to those. So here we are given the Urantia book. We're supposed to do something with it. So what exactly are we doing with it? Of course, you can get involved in many things, but personally, what is your mission with the Urantia book? And for me, was trying to learn new ways to share the teaching, not the book, to share the teaching. So I start looking everywhere for people that knew how to do that. I read all kinds of documents about sharing the teaching. What could I learn from those? And then one document that really impressed me, that was a guiding document for me, was the publication mandate. And in the publication mandate, well, I'm going to share that with you. Maybe, okay, just a second. Where is it? Oh, here is it. You see this? You see this message?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, so teachers and the message of Jesus, how we can change the world. So the book, well, this isn't taken from the publication mandate, but the publication of the book has not been postponed to that possibly somewhat remote date. They say remote date. An early publication of the book has been provided so that may be in the end for the training of leaders and teachers. Wow, when I read that, I said, leaders, I never saw myself as a leader, neither as a teacher, far from it. So, I said, okay, I'll put that aside for now. And then the future is not open to your moral comprehension. Who would know we had a virus at this time? Who would know that the world is changing at this time? Nobody could predict that, but it did happen. So many, many things are coming our ways that we don't know about. Will we be prepared? But you will do well to diligently study the order, plan, and methods of progression as they were enacted in the earth life of Michael when the Word was made flesh. And then, when I read that, I said, wow, I need to go back to the Urantia book. And what did this produce in me? At the beginning, like I said, I was more interested in the first part of the book. Especially the part about the rebellion, the Adam and Eve, the story of the earth, the cosmos, and everything, the organization, and I would engage people in talks about these things, but that didn't do anything. That didn't convert anyone to the Urantia book. That didn't save anyone. I don't think so. But then today, after looking, what I found was that my interest now is mostly focused on the part about Jesus. And I cannot get enough of it. Every day before I do my meditation, I read for about half an hour, different parts of the life of Jesus. And I don't know why, but I seem to see things that I never saw before. I'm so impressed that sometimes I cry. And I think the message of Jesus is what this world needs at this time. So let's go again. You must again study the time of Jesus on earth. You must carefully take note about the kingdom of heaven as was inaugurated in the world. Did it evolve slowly and unfold naturally? Or did it come with sudden show of force and with spectacular exhibition of power? Was it evolutionary or revolutionary? So I'm going to stop sharing my screen here. So this is a question sometimes that people ask, they say, is it evolutionary or revolutionary? And there's one passage of the book, a chapter, I think it's 147, if I can find one, in 149 to 11, which is page 1671-6. They say Jesus was not a revolutionist. He was a progressive evolutionist. And you know what? I read that before, I never saw it. And sometimes we want to be revolutionary. We want to change the world from one day to the other. And it doesn't work that way. So in my search to try to find ways to share the teaching, I involve myself in different courses. There's all kinds of courses available on the internet for you to learn how to become better disseminators or teachers. You can even be part of a study group. I've been having a study group for more than 21 years, and I've learned so much within the study group because I was the host. I could experiment different methods, and I searched different methods, and I would apply what I learned while taking courses. So I took courses, UBIS courses. I went to Africa to learn from Musa Ndiaye, who was a teacher. I was ready to go anywhere in the world to learn ways to teach. And while I was involved in UAI, I've asked many education chairs to produce documents on teaching the way Jesus was teaching. And it's when I went to Africa that I started seeing someone that was doing similarly what Jesus was doing. And then I read paper written by Jeffrey Waddle about how Jesus was teaching. I read everything he was writing about how people, how we could teach, how we could share. What was the bridge between different revelation? I wanted to learn how to share. And this should be our mission as Urantia book reader. We should be involved in an effort, unparalleled effort to change ourselves first and to learn ways to share how to change others, how the other can change. But they will change when they see how much we are changed. They most of what we are will be a major influence on their way of accepting what we might give as an example or as a teaching. So let me keep on going with my sharing screen here. Where is it now? I think that's the one. Okay, so if I keep on going, this is what I was saying. Jesus was not the militant revolutionist. He was a progressive evolutionist. So, that tells a lot. Now, how did Jesus teach? Jesus understood the minds of men. How much do we understand the mind of the one that we want to share the teaching with? Do we get to try to know them? Do we ask questions? Are we interested really in who they are? So he knew what was in the heart of man, and had his teaching been left as he presented them, the only commentary being the inspired interpretation afforded by his earth life, all nations and all religions of the world would speedily have embraced the gospel of the kingdom. The well-meant effort of Jesus' early followers to relate his teaching so as to make them the more acceptable to certain nations, races, and religion only resulted in making such teaching the less acceptable to all nation, race, and religion. There's a great lesson to learn there. I know we love Jesus. And, if I approach someone in my community and I start just talking about Jesus, this and that, they probably look at me with, well, where this guy's coming from, they're probably going to reject everything I say because this is the way most people in my community feel. They don't know Jesus, but because of prejudice they have, of things they have learned through the religion they rejected, they reject, everything that came with it. Here's another one. Aside from the incorporation of many teachings from the Persian mystery and much of the Greek philosophy into Christianity, two great mistakes were made. And probably you know those mistakes. Probably you've read this. So one of them is the effort to connect the gospel teaching directly onto the Jewish theology, as illustrated by the Christian doctrine of the atonement teaching that Jesus was the sacrificed son who would satisfy the Father's stern justice and appease the divine wrath. These teachings originated in a praiseworthy effort to make the gospel of the kingdom more acceptable to disbelieving Jews. Though these efforts failed as far as winning the Jews was concerned, they did not fail to confuse and alienate many honest souls in all subsequent generations. And we can see a lot of people still believe in this doctrine, and others will be shy away from that because it will repel them. Because once someone understands that God is love, how can he ask his son to sacrifice himself? Now, I'm going to come back on that a little bit later on. The second great blunder of the master's early followers, and one which all subsequent generations, they just say subsequent generation that persisted in perpetuating, was to organize the Christian teaching so completely about the person of Jesus. That's another lesson to be taught. This overemphasis of the personality of Jesus and the theology of Christianity has worked to obscure his teachings. And all of this has made it increasingly difficult for Jews, Mohammedans, Hindus, and other Eastern religionists to accept the teaching of Jesus. We would not belittle the place of the person of Jesus in the religion which might bear his name, but would not permit such consideration to eclipse his inspired life or to supplant his saving message, the fatherhood of God and the brotherhood of man. Let's stop sharing for a minute. Many years ago, well, and I believe most of you have done this exercise, thinking, what's the best way to share the teaching to change the world? What will it take for the world to change? What would it be like to see a world that has changed? What would it look like? But first of all, the individual within that world, that I came to the conclusion, that's my own conclusion, would all be conscious of God as a father and their neighbors as brother and sister. they would come to that realization consciously, not intellectually. Because when we think about the brotherhood of man and the fatherhood of God, when we tell that to people, oh yeah, yeah, I get it, intellectually we get it. But what does it mean for us consciously in our heart? How do we feel about this? And the second consideration, the second thing I realized is that, and I remember reading that in the book at different parts, once every man or a majority of men start really wanting to do the will of the Father, the will of God, then will the world change. Now, since then, I'm always thinking, what is the percentage of people in the world at this time that wants to do the will of God? Look at our government. Sometimes I'm thinking, the head of our government, how many of them consciously embrace the fatherhood of God? How many of them really think about God when they're doing their work and they really want to do his will instead of their own will? And we know that's so easy to supplant the will of God by our own will. We're so caught up sometimes with our ego, with our sense of importance, that we forgot about God during the day. Even I sometimes, I meditate every day, and then during the day, I forgot to think about God while I'm doing things. Of course, we cannot be always there. I got to think about God, got to think about God. But I think the more we get in tune with God, the easier it gets to do his will. And there's many parts in the Urantia book that tell us what it is to do the will of God. Some say it's to be perfect like he is. And in Jesus' time, I remember reading that passage, for him, it was to express to the best of his ability truth, beauty, and goodness. But he left us a small message, the fatherhood of God and the brotherhood of man. Now, let me share again my screen. There's something else I want to see. That is for me the saving message. And then the kingdom of heaven is within us. That's another great message that Jesus has left us. As an experience last year, someone called me, a lady that was just learned that she had terminal cancer. And she was scared of dying, but scared of what would happen after. I didn't know her well. I met her in a mortuary salon. One of my uncle died many years ago, and she was a friend of him and his daughter. And she remembered me because I had done a eulogy. I had written something about my uncle where I talk about faith and all this, and she was impressed by that, so she called me. So I went over to meet with her. And you know what? When I sat in front of her, and I was talking to myself, what can I say to this person? Well, what can I tell her to comfort her? And I was really praying, Jesus, help me. And there was no word coming to my lips, no word coming to my mouth to say to her. And then out of a sudden, the only thing I could say to her, I looked at her and I said to her, you know what? God lives within you. And when I said that to her, she opened up, her eyes went really wide open and she started crying. And, that's all I said to her. I never said anything else. And that was enough. Sometimes we don't know how powerful the message of Jesus is. And, when we take back his message of the fatherhood of God and the brotherhood of man, and we find a way to share this truth with others, we have to remember that the spirit of truth is within them. It will accompany the word. It will make those people more receptive to that truth. And this is what Jesus told his apostle. Now, let me go back to a story. I talked about a little bit about the music thing, about becoming a music player or whatever. let's say that we were given by the publication mandate, the book was only given to those who are ready for it, long time before its worldwide mission. That is us. We have to take that. This is us. It's not the neighbor who doesn't know about the book. It's us. So what are we going to do with it? How are we going to do with it? So one day I'm thinking, I says, who are we? Who are we really? We're supposed to be the light of the world. We're supposed to be the salt of the earth. So how do we change that? How do we become that? So I'm thinking, what exactly are we? So I'm thinking about the Urantia book as a big book, 2096 page. Now it says we're like, a doctor, a soul doctor. Ever thought of yourself as a soul doctor? All those people out there, they don't believe in God. They're in despair. They're in depression. You ever wonder when you go in traffic, sometimes you look at all those other cars, all those people in traffic jam. Every time, I'm stuck in traffic, I'm always thinking, how many of those are really at this time thinking about God? How many of those, when they woke up in this morning, they thought about God? How many of those is God in their life? So I'm start thinking to myself, maybe, we should call ourselves doctor of the soul. Now, if you're a doctor, if you're a good doctor, and people come to see you to get healed or to get treated for any sickness, do you start talking to them about reading all the books you read to become a doctor? No. They would change doctor. They would go somewhere else. They're not ready. They don't want to be a doctor. They just want to be healed. And this is what we are. We're doctor of the soul. We're there to heal people, heal their faith, heal their soul. They don't want to know about the Urantia book. Some of them will. Of course, some of them will. Some of them will. Wow, where did you get this? And I've had people ask me this question, after hearing me talk sometime, where do you get all those ideas? What do you read? And then I ask questions. And if I think they're ready, I might say to them, well, you might look up the Urantia book. That's all I say. I don't give them the Urantia book, I want them to look for it. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about this. When you talk about you tell people about the fatherhood of God, there's different ways of doing that. You just don't tell people, well, this is the fatherhood of God and brotherhood of man. You have to find ways to modify the message to make it receptive to them, and just pray that the spirit of truth within them. But now there's a cue. Most of the time, us Urantia book reader, we know so much. We're so smart. We want to tell them everything. Not just the fatherhood of God. No, we want to tell them the whole book. We want to tell them all the truth we have understood. Now, how did you get to learn those truths? How do we understand those truths? How do we catch on to those truths? It took us years. We had the scaffolding. We were lookers, knockers, searchers. We kept pushing ahead because this was important for us. Just like a doctor, that want to become a surgeon, a good, surgeon. And he's going to study and study. It's like a scientist, whatever. And we're focused. Now, you think you can teach everyone that you meet with what you've learned? No, they don't want to know that. They just want to do a little piece, just to make them feel well. So when we meet someone and they ask us a question, how did Jesus teach? Now, let me share my screen again. Now, this is how Jesus mostly, or we can teach. Only when the saving message has meaning will the listener give it value. Only when the listener is giving it value will it cause any appreciable change. Only when people change will our world advance toward light and life. That's how the simple saving message, this mustard seed, unfold and change the world. Now, when we talk about the fatherhood of God and the brotherhood of man, this has strong meaning, very strong meaning, but we have to modulate that message to be appreciable to the person that listens. But we have to be confident that that person is always inhabited by the Spirit of truth. This is our ally in our work. And if you believe in Jesus, that the Spirit is within everyone, helping them find truth, then you will grab this. You will grab that when a person is there, you don't just tell them about everything. You want to work with the Spirit of truth. How would that work? Now, let me go on. The teacher of the religion of Jesus should approach other religion with the recognition of the truths which are held in common, many of which come directly or indirectly from Jesus' message, while they refrain from placing so much emphasis on the difference. Can we identify those differences that we tend to emphasize? How do we approach doctrinal error contained in other person's religion? I don't know about you, but I did all kind of mistake. First thing I would say, oh, you believe in the doctrinal approach, the what they call it, the atonement doctrine. And then as soon as I tried to demolish their belief, I lost them. Every time I would lose them. I wanted to be smart, to show them that I knew better, and well, if you believe God is love, how can we, blah, blah. I had all the good argument. But you can't do that. Jesus never destroys someone else's belief. Never did he do that. So as far as for me, as any controversial doctrine that we might see in the Bible or in the Torah or in the Quran, never touch that. Jesus always put light where the truth was, and that light will remove all the shadow of error. So never touch those things. Now, method that Jesus used to teach, ask question, bridging truth from other revelation. Jesus always took what was in the Torah or the scriptures, and he would volumize those truths. He would emphasize those truths. Never, always take what was good. And even one of his apostles one time asked him, I see that you're not taking everything from the scripture. And he said, well, you see well, Nathanael. I think it's Nathanael that has that. And he explained to Nathanael why he was doing it, what he was doing. And he told him, don't say that to the others till I'm gone. And then uplifting spiritual conversation. Now, when Jesus asked question, why would he ask, what happened when you ask question? Too often we're tempted just to go ahead and give the answer. We're so full of knowledge. We want so much to share what we know. But how does that work? Okay, let me say just, I'm not saying this is my understanding of the Spirit of truth, how it works. So everybody has the Spirit of truth within them. So let's say we're having a conversation and someone is there and I want to enlighten that person. I might ask them first, well, I did it not long ago during a wedding ceremony, in the party afterwards, there was someone there, a woman, and I started talking with her. She was alone by herself. And I asked her, I said, okay, where's your husband? Oh, she says, he died a few months ago. Oh, I said, I'm sorry. What do you do then? It's an opportunity. So I asked her, I said, do you believe life after death? Do you believe you will see your husband again? She looked at me, well, yeah, I guess so, like most people would say, because they don't know the answer. Oh, was tempting just to tell her, all about life after death, like we do. But I refrained myself. I asked her, what do you think happens after death? Oh, I don't know. How do you imagine? You know, you have a little imagination. What if? What if there's something else? What it would be like? Let her find the answer. Now, when we ask question the right question, and we let them search for the answer, we open up their mind to the work of the Spirit of truth. Because then they're open to that spiritual impulse coming within them. But if we tell them right away the answer, that stops their curiosity. And it might, even what you say might not be acceptable to them. But if you tell them, what if? What if there's something else after that? What it would be like for you? How would you imagine it? Oh, then maybe they don't have the answer right away. You leave them as this. But if they say to you, well, I don't believe there's nothing after that, don't start, it's like this one that Jesus met during his travel. And Gaetan asked him, he says, why didn't you talk to this one, master? Because he was not ready for the truth. He was not asking for it. He was not teachable. So when you ask someone, do you believe life after death? He says, no. So forget about him. He's not ready yet. But if you find someone that says, well, maybe, you might have a believer there. You might not have faith yet, but you have a believer. Find a way to ask the right question. And then after that, once you meet that person again, if you have the opportunity to meet her again, you can pursue that conversation and see where it went. And if it didn't go anywhere, just leave it as such. She's not interested. Her curiosity is not open yet. She's not ready to be taught. Leave it at this. Sometimes we're so much in a hurry to save the world with our knowledge that we're doing the opposite. We're creating resistance. We miss the opportunity. So think about the Spirit of truth when you approach someone. And then if you go on and they say, yes, I thought about it, blah, 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 I think that maybe, let them, don't try to, just volumize whatever they perceive as truth, volumize it, make it bigger for them. Ask other questions. And then you can introduce the concept of God as the Father. Then if you believe there's life after death, well, you must think there's a God. Oh, yeah. The name of their God might be different. They might call it an energy. They might call it an intelligence. They might call it cosmic consciousness, whatever. It doesn't matter what they call it. So if you believe in such a force, a being, how do you see him? Could you see him as a father? Ask questions. Let them find the answer like we did when we look for it. Did anyone come to you and tell you all the answer right away? If someone would have come to you and blah, blah, blah about everything they read in the Urantia book, what would you have said? You probably, where's that person coming from? You must have fallen into a dark pit, Is he crazy or something? Is he crazy? All my family thought I was crazy. All my friends thought I was crazy for years. And even some of my family members still think I'm in a cult or something, still I'm in the sect. Only my sister, which was part of my own study group, know the truth about me. But the rest of my brother and sister, I have many. Well, I only have a sister left, one died, but the rest of my brother, I have 5 of them. They don't know a thing about what I do. They're not even interested. I think I'm nuts. And a lot of my friends also, they're the same, and probably for you, the same thing. So let me share again a few things, and after that, maybe open it for a few discussion. Why is asking question? This all question that you need to ask yourself. And I think asking ourselves question is a good way to start becoming a good teacher. Why asking question is so important. I think for me, there's a spirit of truth there that's called to act when we do that. How can we bridge the whole with the new? How can we bridge what people is the truth? But how can we bridge it to the new? And it's like bridging the Bible with the life and teaching of Jesus, the fourth part of the book. If you learn, if you know the Bible well, if you're part of Bible study group, probably people in US, there you have Bible study. We don't have that in my province, but maybe you're still part of a church. There's a way you can interact with those people. You don't need to share the book, but you can start, what is it they believe in? What is it that I can uplift with them? How can we volumize the truth in others' belief? How can we expand that truth like Jesus did to overshadow what it's not the truth? How can we uplift discussion to a spiritual level? When you're among people, they're talking, a funeral parlor, for example, at a wedding, at a baptism, whatever. There's always opportunity there when people are afflicted, like this time now. There's a way that we can infuse in those discussions spiritual truth. In a nutshell, we can turn the saving message into a ministry if we can expand the meaning of the fatherhood of God, expand the meaning of the brotherhood of man, introduce the implication of impossibility with the saving message. This is a saving message. The book, remember, see yourself as a doctor of the soul. And the book that you have is for you. One thing that really impressed me in one of the messages of the book is when they talk about Melchizedek. And if you remember that, Melchizedek did teach many, many people that went around the world to teach others. And I remember reading that little part where they say that Melchizedek taught to some more than he taught to others. He even taught to some things about as far as paradise, but only to some. So those who were ready. He was smart. He's a teacher. Melchizedek are great, great teachers. We should use them as example. So who are we to tell them everything? So we're unwise when we do that. And Jesus, still standing, then said to the 12, "You are my chosen ambassadors." But I know that in the circumstances, you could not entertain this belief as a result of mere human knowledge, the belief that they're Son of God. This is a revelation of the Spirit of my Father to your inmost soul. And when therefore you make this confession by the insight of the Spirit of my Father, which dwell within you, I am led to declare that upon this foundation, we are the foundation, will I build the brotherhood of the kingdom of heaven. Upon this rock of spiritual reality, will I build the living temple of spiritual fellowship in the eternal realities of my Father's kingdom. All the force of evil and the host of sin shall not prevail against this human fraternity of the divine Spirit. And while my Father's Spirit shall ever be the divine guide and mentor of all who enter the bound of the Spirit fellowship, to you and your ancestor, I now deliver the key of the outward kingdom, the authority over things temporal, the social and economic feature of this association of men and women as fellow of the kingdom. Sometimes when we read Urantia, oh, he said that to the apostle, and just, refuse the responsibility that is placed on us. When you're given truth, there's a responsibility to accompany truth. And we have to accept that responsibility. It's scary. I was scared. I said, what would I do? Even doing a presentation sometime is scary. What am I going to say? I'm going to finish my share with that. And ever since that day, this same Jesus has been building that living temple. Ever since that day, that means today, upon that same eternal foundation of his divine sonship. Again, the sonship, which is the fatherhood of God. And those who are thereby become self-conscious son of God are the human stones which constitute this living temple of sonship, erecting to the glory and honor of the wisdom and love of the eternal Father of Spirit. Whoop. I changed my screen. What did I do? Okay. So, for me, in the beginning, the Urantia book is still very important. But what's more important for me, it's the saving message of Jesus has become paramount in my mind. There's just not a day, and I tell you, it's the truth. There's not a day, and that's been for many months now, that in my morning meditation and even throughout the day, that I'm not thinking about the sonship with God and the brotherhood of men. And by focusing on that, it has changed my reality. It has changed how I see people. And you know what? At the beginning, I was looking at people saying, "Oh, these are my brother and sister. How can I love them all as Jesus loved me?" I could not do that. I could not grasp. It was too huge. Of course, Jesus said, start one by one. And then one day, with my meditation, thinking about the brotherhood of men, something changed in my mind, a subtle change. And I started saying as well, if I cannot see them as my brother and sister, maybe I can see myself as their brother. And maybe I can act as a brother instead of, mentally to grasp this truth. I let it sink to my heart. And I have to become conscious of God. And I have to, and a lot of us are conscious intellectually of God. But did you ever have those moments in meditation and prayer or worship where you really felt that inner presence? That when you share something with God, you share his response to what you share with him. You share that vibration of your soul, that emotion, spiritual emotion that brought tears to your eyes. And then when you think like this, when you become aware of God within you like this, start to be aware of others like your brother and sister. How do you treat your family, close family? That's how you should treat everyone. How do you love others like Jesus loved us? And we need to pray that God give us that capacity of loving others as he loves us. So we need to go back to how God loves us, how Jesus, who was the personification of God on earth, we need to take that in and try to become like him. And of course, I took many courses. I took the UBIS course. The only one I didn't take, and I have to take, is the Urantia University courses. I read a few documents by them, and I'm saying, well, when I have the time, and my time is very short because I'm very busy doing all kinds of things to help people. But then I took course with Musa for years. I traveled to Africa a few times to meet with him. Of course, today is dead. And then I took course with Christ Experiment. Probably some of you know about them. And I learned so much from them because they're focused on the message of Jesus and how Jesus was teaching. And for me, it was a new discovery. I'm not saying that you should only go to one school. If your interest, your mission, personal mission is to become a teacher, learn every way you can how to teach. Become the what do you call it? The master of the orchestra, the leader of that orchestra. You need to know how to play the fiddle, play the piano, play the guitar, play the violin, play everything. So because we meet different kinds of people. So maybe some of you want to comment on something, your own experience. I would love to hear your own experience with the Fatherhood of God and the teaching. Yes, Alain, I see your hands lift in the air. Go ahead.
Hi, Gaetan. Hi, everyone. Thanks a lot, Gaetan, and all of you who speak out there. What I would like to share is that my own experience, what I realized over the years, is that we somewhat have to look beyond the individual that's in front of us. Our natural reaction, we react to what people say, because everybody wants to say what they think. But if we look beyond the individual, we feel and we are inspired to say things. And I think every time I said something that really made sense for someone actually came from that person, because, you know, our minds are like telepathically connected to our, I guess, to our adjusters. So when you have that respect and you have that tendency to look beyond the individual, and if you really love people, you don't worry much about what people think about what you are saying. You're just interested in what they understand and what you can share with them. And it feels so good when people light up and say, hey, I hadn't thought of it. I had not thought of it that way. But if I can tell you that, it's because you're feeling that in your heart right now. And finally, I would close in saying that at one time I was wondering also, how do I go about helping people, like you were mentioning? And then I just figured like that, well, if each human being would help one human being, not try to save the planet. Imagine if we can just save one human being, the whole planet would be saved. So this is a bit, you know, lightly thought, but it encourages me to go about doing one step at a time as the situation is presented. And I love living this way.
Thank you, Alain. Thank you. Rick or Susan, their hands are up. Go ahead.
Hey, Gaetan, sorry about the virtual background thing there. It doesn't work very good on our computer, but I'm not sure how that got turned on. But anyway, what I really enjoy your talk as I always do. But one of the things you said there about when you introduce the teachings to a new person, I heard an analogy one time in the study group about when you have a baby that's, you know, you're trying to introduce to solid food, you start them out with a little spoonful of applesauce and they chew on a little bit and they spit some of it out, but they get a little bit of it. And then pretty soon they're like, hey, I kind of like that. So you don't start a baby out with filet mignon, but too often our ego kicks in a little bit and we want to try to impress people with our vast knowledge. And so I really like what you said about that's good advice on, you know, trying to introduce people to the teachings of the book. So thanks for this presentation.
Thank you, Rick. Very true what you said. And there reminds me of David Lidicum, who did a speech in Holland about sharing the teaching, which called the spoon, the shovel, and something else, I think. And he explained, you know, like you said, the little spoon sometimes is better than trying to take a shovel up their throat, you know, and which we do most of the time. I did it so many times. Thank you. Okay, there's David Henry wants to share something.
Yes. We Urantians are really faced with a dilemma. I mean, this book is not really quite ready for its worldwide mission. And we would all love to see it that way. And I swear, everything that you said, I've done the same thing. I mean, when I first was introduced to this book, it was the greatest thing in the world. I bought, I don't know how many copies, share it with all my friends. It's like, everybody's gonna love this. No, no one loved it. But here's a little thing that I have never done before, and I'm looking forward to doing this. This is a biblical quote from Romans 8:19. And the first chance I get, I am going to present this would be for a Christian, of course. But here's the quote. This is from Paul. For creation waits with eager longing for the revealing of the sons of God. Boom. Paul, on the road to Damascus, when Jesus came and spoke with Paul, a lot of stuff was shared with Paul. And, you know, because Paul believed that Jesus was coming back right away. There was a lot of stuff he didn't share with us. Oh, I wish he had. But Paul was told about the coming of the Urantia book. And first chance I get, I am going to share this quote: "For creation waits with eager longing for the revealing of the sons of God." That's Romans 8:19. And you know what? I'm going to leave it right there. Boom. That's planting a seed, right? I'm not going to mention the Urantia book. You know, this is probably something that they don't really, well, all creations waits for this. Well, how many Christians are waiting for this?
Many.
Just leave it at that. But to see how it evolves, I've never done this. I look forward to it.
Okay,
Thank you.
everybody, this is your 5-minute break. Go get some water, go get some carrot sticks. Thank you, Gaetan. You're welcome to continue your discussion, but you're doing so under your break time.
Okay, I don't mind. Anyone want to share what they think about the Father of the God or their own experience sharing the teaching? You know, that'd be great, you know.
Yeah, Gaetan, that was a wonderful presentation, very inspirational.
Thank you.
I've been on a 5-year service project with my church, as some of you know, maybe many of you know. And I'll tell you that it's a liberal Protestant church, but the key to working within the Christian tradition is you have to get known by your parishioners, and they have to know you, and you have to get to know them.
Mm-hmm.
And once you establish that, it's taking me 3 years to make that established relationship. And now, as I said, I've given them, or at least about 52 of them, the untold story of Jesus, and they are willing and openly accept it.
Mm-hmm.
They aren't put off by the beginning story. Some say, well, we don't know what he did in his youth, but it's a fascinating story that's in this book. And plus, the artwork is a game changer, because they all know and enjoy religious art. So there's really nothing in there the way Mo and Jim English edited part 4. So that that is a real tool for those of you who want to reach out to your Christian friends. It really is.
Thank you, John. I remember your story was really inspiring, but it's mostly the time dedicated to get to know these people, get acquainted with them, that made a huge difference.
Yeah.
And we have to be patient. Yes, Marianne.
I'll just share a little bit with my husband's technique. And because many people say, well, how did you end up in Chile? Blah, blah, blah. We were with the Urantia Foundation at a book fair, et cetera, et cetera. And then they'll say to him, well, what is that? And he has something called reverse psychiatry. And he'll say, well, it's not for everyone. It's not for the average person. And people don't want to be average. And he kind of baits them that way, and it's kind of successful because people they want to stand out, and that's one way.
Yeah, thank you. Great help. Great counsel. Probably the other that did that also. Thanks for sharing. Anyone else? Yes, Bennett.
Thank you, Gaetan, and everybody. Couple things on this. A way to understand a good part of what Gaetan said is that it's better if the person hears in their own voice rather than your voice the teaching that you want them to understand. And that's the beauty of asking intelligent questions.
Mm-hmm.
Another way of looking at this is there's 3 components in any interaction between 2 human beings. There's the will or the hunger of the other person. There's, of course, the will of God, and there's your own will. Only one of those doesn't matter. It's our own will, not that we don't have a role to play. We're still intrinsically important in each transaction, but our agenda is what's not important. Leave your agenda at home. find out what the other person's thoughts are. And then you won't have to ask the question, how did Jesus teach?
Thank you. Thank you. Well, I think we're over our time.
Yes.
Maybe Antonio will take over. Thank
So
you,
we are,
everyone, for attending my speech. But there's 90 people. I'm impressed with this initiative. Thank you very much, all.